Hello, kiddos. It is Tuesday, October 21st, and as you can tell, I am not here today. I was not feeling well yesterday, so I went to the clinic and had myself checked out, and apparently I have strep throat. So I am home trying to make sure that I feel better for tomorrow. I'm hoping it is just going to be a one-day thing, and more importantly, that my voice holds out for as long as it can during this. After complaints from last time I was doing this, and you guys said I sounded like I was dead, I'm doing my best to try and force some emotion into this, which I'm hoping does not burn out my voice or make me pass out before we get to the end. Fingers crossed. You will need your Annabelle Lee handout for today, because we're going to be talking about that here in a moment, and you're going to need your short stories handout from yesterday. If you're missing either one of those, make sure you go up and talk to Miss Fossil. Her name is Fossil, and she was a past student of mine. She is absolutely awesome, and I trust her over you, so make good choices. Hopefully you also enjoyed my little sad face I tried to make, so it popped up on there. Don't forget, tomorrow we are wearing orange for anti-bullying, so make sure you are wearing the orange for anti-bullying for tomorrow so that we can get house points. If you would like to turn in your notebook today, you are more than welcome to bring it up to Miss Fossil at the end of class, and she will hold on to it for you so that I can get it from you and begin the grading. Just make sure you've gone through and checked all the stuff in your notebook. Once again, you can go on to my website. I now have this on my site so that you can find all of this information on there if you would like. If you want to wait until tomorrow to turn it in, that is absolutely fine with me too. Once again, make sure you have 7 entries on the homework side, and you should have 11 entries on the bellwork side. Here's where you're going to make sure that you have yesterday's handout. If you are missing yesterday's handout because you were gone, then make sure you come up and grab one from Miss Fossil, and she should be able to get you a new one. We're going to go through and fill this in. I know we already have most of this done from yesterday, so I'll try and be speedy, and so have you guys play along with me so we can say the answers out loud and play this game together. First off, we introduce the first of the 7 elements, which is plot, and excuse me. What is plot? Hopefully you all said it together. Sorry, my voice is already dying. It's what happens in a story. What happens in a story. It's also the outline of the major events in the story, and we're always going to do it in a set of 5. You'll see on the back of your handout that if you were to flip it over, there's 2 stories we're going to look at called The Lady and the Tiger and The Fisherman. We are going to do the 5 parts of a plot for both of those, so we're always going to do it in sets of 5. Next, we have characters. Once again, what are the characters in a story? That's right, the who in the story. Did you guys all say it out loud, or are you just staring at the screen like a bunch of dead little zombies? Hopefully you're playing along and learning. If not, Miss Fossil is going to get really bored today. So hopefully you're saying these out loud and helping me out. You don't have to yell them. I mean, I shouldn't be able to hear you from my house, but at least you're not being boring and just sitting there watching this the entire time. It should be play along. So the characters are going to be who is in the story. It can either be people or animals or things. And then for setting, we have 2 different things. What are the 2 different things that we should have for the setting? Right. We should have both the when and the where. Or you can do time and place. I'm happy either way for the when or the where, or time and place. Then we have point of view. And as we define point of view, how did we define point of view yesterday? For those of you who have it written down. Correct. How the plot is told to us in the story, or it's how we see the story. Either one works for me. And then we talked about the fact that there's different examples we're going to be using. We have first person, we had third person limited, and we had third person omniscient. First of all, what is first person supposed to be, or how is a first person story told to us? Again, at least I hope you're correct. I'm assuming you're just repeating what we told you yesterday, which should be pretty easy because these are the parts you're going to get correct. The main character is telling the story and talking to the audience. So this is where we're saying I or me or we, I'm walking down the street, so on and so forth. So the main character is going to be telling us the story. What's the difference between first person and then the difference between that and third person? Are they limited or omniscient? What's the difference And by the way, yes, it is really fun drawing on here. What's the difference between first person and the two different types of third persons? What does third person limited and omniscient use? You may say it out loud now. Right, they use a narrator. If it is limited, the limited means it can only use one character. If it's omni, which stands for omniscient, means all-knowing, it means it is going to be following many characters. So third person limited uses just one character. Third person omniscient is going to be using multiple characters or many characters. And we'll take a look at a couple quick examples. Our first one, what point of view is this? It says, Zach repeated the phrase to himself again as he glanced at the number scrawled on the piece of paper clutched in his hand. As long as he kept his cool and didn't look suspicious, he would be fine. This would be easy. It had been easy the first several times he'd done this, and it would continue to be easy for as long as he kept his cool. What type of point of view is that one going to be? You can go ahead, wait. If you would like to say it out loud, you may go ahead and say it out loud. Who knows? Maybe Miss Fossil would like to pause these and have you guys say them out loud. That's up to her, or she can just sit there and stare at you. I'm happy either way. But this should be third person limited. Good job to those of you who said it out loud correctly. Those of you who said it out loud the wrong way, shh, stop yelling out the wrong answers. Remember, you can be loud and correct or quiet and wrong. Don't be loud and wrong, or I'll have to have Miss Fossil take down your names using the seating chart and figure out who I have to be mean to. Our next one. On the night of the day on which this cruel deed was done, I was aroused from sleep by the cry of fire. The curtains of my bed were in flames. The whole house was blazing. It was with great difficulty that my wife, a servant, and myself made our escape from the inferno. The destruction was complete. My entire worldly wealth was swallowed up, and I resigned myself from then on to despair. What point of view would this one be? Right, first person. And you know that because it says, I was aroused from my bed. It was my wife, myself, was swallowed up, my entire world, and so that's going to be your clues to let you know it was first person. Next one. This poem, what is it going to be told in? Maggie and Millie and Molly and May went down to the beach to play one day, and Maggie discovered a shell that sang so sweetly she couldn't remember her troubles, and Millie befriended a stranded star, whose rays 5 languid fingers war, and Molly was chased by a horrible thing, which raced sideways while blowing bubbles, and May came home with a smooth round stone, as small as a world and as large as a lone. For whatever we lose, like a you or a me, it's always ourselves we find in the sea. So on this one, first thing you're going to know is between first and third person. Is it first person? Right. It does not say I, so you know first person, wrong, which means it has to be third person. Is it third person limited or third person omniscient? Well, it follows multiple different characters and jumps around, so that's going to make it third person omniscient. Nicely done. You guys are doing pretty well so far. At least I hope you are. Or you're just staring at me the entire time so I can make fun of you tomorrow. Let's take a look at this version. It says, as I walked up the hill, I realized that the atmosphere was just too quiet. There was no sound from the bunny monster, who was nearly always growling from the base of the maple tree. I thought I saw a shadow move high up on the slope, but when I looked again, it was gone. Still, I shuddered as I felt a silent threat pass over me like a cloud over the sun. So on this one, what's the point of view going to be here? Well, you look in the clues, you see where it says I, me. So what is that going to make it? First person. So this is going to be a first person telling. So let's look at another version. As the student walked up the hill, she realized that the atmosphere was just too quiet. The bunny monster tipped its head back and drew breath to growl, but just as the first grrr passed its lips, he heard the crack of a dead branch off to his left. Startled, he looked over, cocking his horned head to one side, and watched the strange man with great interest. As the creepy man saw the student start up the hill, he moved quickly into the shelter of the huge old maple tree. If she saw him now, everything would be ruined. She thought she saw a shadow move high up on the slope, but when she looked again, it was gone. Once again, I'm sure you probably guessed right away, not going to be first person because there's no I's or me's, which means it's going to have to be third person. But does it follow one character or follow multiple characters? Correct. It is omniscient. It follows multiple characters. You got where it follows the student, follows the bunny monster, follows the creepy man. That's going to be 3 different people, so it's going to qualify as omniscient. As she walked up the hill, she realized that the atmosphere was just too quiet. There was no sound from the bunny monster, who she so often heard growling from the base of the maple tree. She thought she saw a shadow move high up on the slope. When she looked again, it was gone. Nevertheless, she shuddered as she felt a silent threat pass over her. It felt like a cloud creeping over the sun. So is it first person? Correct. Can't be first person. No I, me's, or we's, which means it's going to have to be third person. Does it follow one character or multiple characters? Correct. Follows one character, which means it has to be limited. It's just following the girl the entire time as she looks around and sees different things, so that's going to make it third person. All right, we'll take another look at one. As she walked up the hill, she realized that the atmosphere was just too quiet. There was no sound from the bunny monster, who she so often heard growling from the top of the maple tree. She thought she saw a shadow move high up on the slope. When she looked again, it was gone. The man saw her start up the hill, and he moved quickly behind the shelter of the huge old maple tree. If she saw him now, everything would be ruined. So do you remember what this one was from before? That should hopefully help you out somewhat. Without giving you any clues or pointing anything, you say the answer is third person omniscient is correct. This would be third person omniscient because it jumps between the girl and the man. So it's just those two, still qualifies as omniscient. How about this one? Says, as you walk up the hill, you realize that the atmosphere is just too quiet. There's no sound from the bunny monster. You know it's almost always growling from the base of the maple tree. You think you see a shadow move high up on the slope, but when you look again, it's gone. You shudder as you feel a silent threat pass over you. Well, it can't be first because there's no I, me, or we, so you have to take out first. And it's not really third because it doesn't say he or she, which means it has to be the one that goes in between those two, which is going to be second. This is the one we hardly ever use because second is where it says you. It says you walk up the hill, you realize, you think, you look, you feel, and it's hard to write a good story with second person, which is you. So this is second person that we're never going to use. So bad, no, we won't ever use it, drawing all over it, sad face, rarg. Second person. Second person. Let's finish out the rest of our notes now. So we have plot, character, setting, point of view. Theme. So for theme, and here's where me not being there doesn't work as well, but if you think you know what theme is, what would the best theme be? We mentioned it a little bit with plot, and you guys would come up with similar ideas. Theme is going to be the main idea. It's typically the best way you want to look at it is it's what the story teaches us. You could sometimes call it the moral. So the theme is the main idea that the story is about. It's also what's going to teach us. It's what we learn, if you will. And so the theme can be a little bit tough, but it's going to be the overall main idea, the thing we're going to learn, what it teaches us, something like that. Next up, internal conflict. Well, conflict, you should know what conflict means. It means when you have a fight with someone in some way. And then internal. What does the word internal mean? Well, you have internal organs. And where are your organs? I'm hoping most of you just said inside of you, or are just still staring at the screen in shock that you get to hear my voice without actually seeing me. But so it means a fight that is in you. That's not going to make much sense. But it's going to be in your head. So it's a fight in your head. Does that mean that you're crazy? No. Even better, it means it's a decision that you have to make. So an internal conflict is going to be a major decision in the story by the main character. So internal conflict is going to be a major decision. Almost always, you're going to have the word or written in there. You're going to do this or do this. I'm going to chase after the dog, or I'm going to let him go. I'm going to smack the kid in the head, or I'm going to let them get away without doing homework. So it's a decision in the story by the main character, something or something. For our next one, we have external conflict. We already covered conflict. It's a fight of some kind. And if internal meant inside, what is external going to mean? Mr. Brovicast, it means out. You're correct. So it is a fight that happens outside of somebody. This one, easy. It means a battle between two physical things. So an external conflict is a battle between two things in the story. Then you always are going to have a versus in there. So you're going to have versus, versus. So external conflict is always something versus something. It's going to be the dragon versus the pirate. It's going to be the boy versus the genie. It's going to be the princess versus the king. So it's something versus something. Those of you who take comp class, I know in comp class they go through and tell you that it's like man versus nature, man versus man. We're going to be more specific. You can't be generic man versus. You're going to have to actually fill in what the man would be. So don't say man, say fisherman versus genie or something like that. Now, let's take a look at the poem Annabel Lee. So get out your, and we're going to go through and see what we can fill in for there. And we're going to do all the different spots. You don't have to write this down anywhere. If you want to, you can. It's just to help you out. This is to give you an example of what you're going to do for homework. You're going to fill in the 7 parts, or the 7 elements of a short story over the story that you're going to read, called The Lady and the Tiger. I just want to sort of demonstrate how to do it with one we all know, called Annabel Lee. First off, with plot, we're going to do the 5 parts of a plot. For Annabel Lee, I came up with the first one, which says, number 1, the boy and girl love so much the angels notice. That was the very first stanza into the second stanza. And then for number 2, what would be the next most important thing that happens for number 2? I think I went with, for number 2, the angels notice, and then what happens to the girl? That's where I'm filling for number 2. So what happens to the girl? Girl dies from cold wind and gets buried. So that'd be number 2. I think for our 3 most important thing, after the girl dies, what happens to dude, or what does dude do? We'll make that number 3. What does dude do? Boy goes insane, or you could put dude goes insane. So for number 3, something about the fact of the boy going insane or dude going insane. For number 4, after the boy goes insane, what is it he chooses to do with the angels? He blames the angels and demons for the death, and then once that happens, that means he's pretty much insane at this point, which brings us to number 5. What is it the boy does at the very end of the poem? That would be number 5, the last thing we have, and that would be boy's crazy enough and he goes and sleeps in the tomb. That covers pretty much the whole story from beginning to end, with them falling in love. You have the fact that she dies, boy is going to end up going insane, and then number 4 is something about the blaming of the death, and I figure at the very end, him going crazy and sleeping in the tomb. After plot, we're then going to go to characters. Well, first off, we have 3 main characters in the story. First one's pretty easy. Who's the first character? Annabel Lee. And then who's going to be the second most important character? Dude. And then even though they're in his imagination, I would count them as a character. So who do we say is the 3rd most important character, or the 3rd character? And I really hope you guys are saying something and not still just staring at the screen this entire time. How incredibly boring would that be? Play along with my game. Annabel Lee, Dude, and Angels. Then we're going to have you give a little description of each one. For Annabel Lee, how would you describe her? My guess would be, how does she feel about the boy? The fact that she loves him. How would you describe Dude? I have a feeling you'll all be pretty quick. You would describe Dude as, did you all say crazy? That's probably pretty good for me. And then the angels, at least according to the Dude, how would we describe the angels? Did you go with evil? Yeah, that works for me too. Nicely done. Evil, goes insane, girl makes poor choices, all works for me. For the setting, there are 2 parts of the setting that you're going to have to know for this one also. Let's see. For when it takes place, and then what's the other part of setting besides when? Nicely done. The where. Well, from the very beginning of the poem, for the when, we know when it takes place. When does it take place? Yeah, like a long time ago. Time ago. And then if it's cold outside because of the cold wind, what time of year would it be taking place? What time of year do we get coldness? Nicely done. For the where. On the where does it take place? Well, once again, it was the refrain, the thing that gets repeated throughout the entire poem. So where is it taking place? In a kingdom. Where was that kingdom located? By the sea. Nicely done. Have when, long time ago, winter. For the where, you're going to have a kingdom, and you're going to have by the sea. Next up, well, was this point of view first person or third person? Was it being told by the main character, or was it being told by a narrator? Well, since we had trouble coming up with the name of the main character, that should help us figure out what the point of view was, because it never says the main character's name. Why does it never say the main character's name? Because he's the one telling us. If he's the one telling us the story, what is the point of view? First. And which character tells it? Who is it following? Dude! Exclamation mark. First person follows dude. Pay no attention to the fact that shouldn't be there. Theme. Well, the theme on this one is the thing that we should learn, the moral from all of it. What would be a good theme for this one? Don't be crazy. Not quite a good theme for this one. Don't listen to angels. Probably also not a good theme. But in theory, what was the motivation of the angels? What is it that causes Dude to do what he does, and what causes Annabelle Lee to make the poor choice that she makes? It sort of affects all three of them. And what emotion affects all three of them? And it's not jealousy, because Dude and Annabelle Lee aren't jealous. But what is it that the angels are jealous of? Love is the best theme, because that it connects to all of them. Dude and Annabelle Lee have love, and the angels. So love would be a good theme. All Dude talks about is love and how that drove him to do what he does. Internal conflict. Then we get to internal conflict. Let's see. For this one, remember, internal conflict is going to be a choice in the story. So we did one for Dude. Let's say, what decision does Dude have to make in the story? Well, several of them. At the end of the story, what is it Dude has to choose between doing? He can sleep where? In tomb. Or what could he do instead of sleeping in the tomb? And this is where do not use the word not. If you just said not sleep in tomb, imagine me coming over and jabbing you in the eyeball. This is me, eyeballs. Jabbing you in the eyeball. This is me jabbing you in the eyeballs. Do not use the word not. You come up with a separate thing. So sleep in tomb, or something that is not eyeball jabbing, roar, does not use not. So I say sleep in tomb, or what? Move on? We'll say move on. So Dude can either sleep in tomb or move on. How about angels? If they exist in the story, let's say they have to make a choice. They realize that Dude and Annabelle Lee have more love than them. So what do they choose to do to Annabelle Lee? That's right. Kill her. Or, what's the other option? Did you just say not kill her? This is you getting stabbed in the eyeballs again. Eyeball stabbings. Do not say not kill her. If they don't kill her, what would they choose to do instead? How about accept their love? That works good enough for me. So the biggest thing here for internal conflict, realize you do not use the word not. All right, stab you in the eyeballs. Remember that. Eyeball stabbing. So there's Dude sleeping in the tomb or moving on. Annabelle Lee, accept their love. For the homework that you're going to end up doing about the Lady and the Tiger, do not use not for that. The external conflict is going to be something versus something. So on this one, it should be pretty big. Throughout most of the story, what is it? Who's fighting? What's the biggest conflict? Who are the bad guys? That's right. Angels. And then how do you write it? Something versus. So angels versus Dude, because he goes insane and thinks he's going against them. And then we could also probably do what? Angels versus, well, before Dude, who is it the angels kill? Yeah, I'd say Annabelle Lee. And in a way, you could probably say one more in there, because dude, if the angels aren't real, then what is it dude is actually fighting in the entire story? If he's not fighting the angels, turns out he'd be fighting sanity. So you'd say dude versus his own sanity, and we can try and do something like that. That's what you're going to end up doing for the 7 elements. You're just going to go through there after you read the story and come up with all the different parts. Now what are you going to do? A couple things. One, remember that notebooks are due tomorrow. You can turn them in today if you wish. You can bring them up to Miss Fossil, and she has a place behind my desk where she will store them, and I will get them from you. You are going to read the story called The Lady and the Tiger, so you can go through and take a look at that. It's on the handout you picked up from my desk. And on the back of your notes, you're going to complete the 7 elements just like we just did for Annabelle Lee, but you're going to do it for The Lady and the Tiger. And we're going to go through and see how well you did that tomorrow, and we'll cover it, and I get to call on you and fun stuff like that. Once again, as you do the internal conflict, do not use the word not. Do your best to try and figure out the time for the setting and the place and stuff like that. That'll be pretty much it. The last thing, make sure that you wear orange for tomorrow, because that will be for the anti-bullying that gets us house points. I apologize, I'm not here today. I wish I was. I did not want to miss, but I was just feeling way too. When you get to the Lady and the Tiger story, this is the picture I'm going to show you again tomorrow when I get to come back. But you're going to have a guy who has to make a choice between 2 doors, and he has to decide. One of them is going to have a tiger that's going to kill him, and one of them is going to have a girl that is going to marry him. And then he has to decide between it, and I'll explain more about this picture in a little bit. But hopefully you at least get a chance to see the picture, and that'll help you out just a bit. Take your time to read the story, go through the 7 elements, and I will see you guys tomorrow. I apologize for being gone. Thanks. Bye.